Why, Mr. Chairman, is Kerala invisible to this government? I'd like to know. Equally telling is the silence on air pollution. After months of public outrage and choking headlines, the Finance Minister's speech found space for everything except the air we breathe. The National Clean Air Programme still runs on 2009 standards, weaker than the WHO's PM 2.5 norms, even as pollution control funding has been cut from 1,300 crores to 1,091 crores this year. A budget that saves on rupees but ignores the air its citizens breathe reduces development to bad arithmetic, not good progress. Mr. Chairman, the announcement of 3 new National Institutes of Pharmaceutical Education and Research, or NIPA, raises a troubling question of balance and intent once again. I'm sorry to return to my state, but Kerala, despite one of the country's strongest public health ecosystems and a proven record in healthcare delivery, once again went unaddressed. Even as NIPAs are concentrated and clustered in northern and eastern India, and a single institute in Hyderabad is expected to serve the entire south. This imbalance is not new. I flagged it 2 years ago when I was chairman of the Standing Committee on Chemicals and Fertilizers. At a time when over 60% of India's 8,500 MSME drug units lack support to adopt even good manufacturing practices, such skewed institutional allocation risks shrinking rather than strengthening our manufacturing base. It also does little to reduce our dependence on China for nearly 2/3 of key active pharmaceutical ingredients, or to correct India's anemic R&D investment of just 0.64% of GDP, with even large pharma firms spending under 1% of net sales on their research. The result is predictable: limited innovation, continued reliance on low-cost biosimilars, and life-saving biologics priced far beyond the reach of most Indians, where public health spending remains so much below the GDP target of 2.5%. Without correcting regional imbalance and backing institutions with serious R&D support, this NIPA initiative risks sounding visionary while delivering exclusion. Now, all of these shortcomings in the sectors I've surveyed, in infrastructure, education, healthcare, might have been bearable if at least the economic burden were distributed equitably. But as per the UNDP Inequality-Adjusted Human Development Index, India ranks the lowest of all BRICS countries at 130. The silent shock absorbers of this economy are the middle class. They are now cracking under the strain. The symbols of success we see today, smartphones, cars, lifestyle assets, are only sustained by EMIs, Mr. Chairman, for the middle class, leaving the Aam Aadmi little room for health insurance, for savings or medical emergencies. Credit cards are once a luxury or a convenience. They've now become a lifeline. Defaults rose 28% last year to 6,742 crore rupees, not because Indian households are reckless, but because they're running out of room to breathe. With 2.9 lakh crore rupees in outstanding dues and 10.5 crore cards in circulation, borrowing has become the price of staying afloat. Even as households struggle, the tax burden has quietly shifted onto them. Personal income tax now contributes over half of all direct taxes, while the corporate share declines, as I mentioned earlier. And while last year's budget at least acknowledged middle-class housing stress through the Swami Fund, this budget offers only silence. Inflation may look subdued on paper, but for citizens, the cost of living has merely been shifted. When the state fails to provide clean air, safe water, and uncontaminated food, households are forced to buy privately what should be public goods: air purifiers, water filters, basic safeguards. This burden is unequal, Mr. Chairman. The privileged can protect themselves, while the poor remain exposed. A nation cannot grow by exhausting the very people who sustain it. The Aam Aadmi, who are financing this government, are being sent deeply troubling signals on taxation. A one-time concession allowing special economic zone manufacturing units to sell domestically at reduced duties is little more than tokenism when the SEZ ecosystem itself is collapsing, with hundreds of zones shut and employment in free fall. More disturbing still is the withdrawal of income tax exemption on disability pensions for defense personnel.
This move weakens social protection for disabled veterans who risk their lives for our country and draws an indefensible line between service-related disabilities and abdication of the state's moral duty to those who have made such sacrifices for the nation. Now, I'd like to acknowledge that amid this disaster and disorder, there has been some measure of fiscal discipline. The fiscal deficit has edged down from 4.5% to 4.4%. Minister speaks of a further reduction to 4.3%, and that sounds reassuring on paper. But I've been in this House long enough, Mr. Chairman, to remember when her predecessor, the late Arun Jaitley, as Finance Minister, set a target of 3.5%. We're nowhere near that benchmark today, yet we seem eager to applaud for settling at a much higher number. Perspective matters, sir, and without it, these figures lose their meaning, especially when they fail the only test that truly counts, whether the Aam Aadmi has more money in his pocket, whether he has wages that keep pace with prices, whether he or she has a life that is becoming easier. Fiscal prudence cannot be celebrated in isolation when household budgets remain under strain and economic security is elusive for millions. In this budget, the Union government has once again doubled down on an infrastructure-led growth strategy, raising capital expenditure to 12.2 lakh crores on the assumption that public capex will crowd in private investment and generate jobs. But this promise has yet to materialize. In fact, it hasn't materialized at all during this government's tenure. Private investment has throughout remained sluggish. Labor-intensive sectors are crowded out by capital-heavy projects. Welfare spending has been compressed, and key subsidies and social sector allocations fall short of stated goals. The burden has increasingly been pushed onto the states without adequate devolution of tax revenue. Meanwhile, unemployment, particularly amongst educated youth, remains distressingly high, and capacity utilization continues to remain below levels that would trigger a genuine private investment cycle. In this context, the capex-centric approach appears less like a strategy for inclusive growth and more like a gamble that ignores weak demand, joblessness, and the lived economic distress of the ordinary citizen. Mr. Chairman, no nation can develop on slogans or headlines alone. India's investment in research and development remains stuck at 0.6% of GDP, not only below advanced economies, but even below several emerging ones. China invests about 2.4%, Brazil even over 1%, the US 3.5%, South Korea 5% of GDP. A country that aspires to be a manufacturing and knowledge powerhouse cannot afford to treat research and development as an afterthought. I would urge the Minister to elevate R&D as a national priority. Now, on urban cities, on our cities, it should be pointed out that the hesitancy in innovation is reflected in the Smart Cities mission, which has become a reminder of unfulfilled promises. A decade after Smart Cities was announced, deadlines have been repeatedly extended from June 23 to December 25, no real change on the ground. Claims of 96% completion certainly ring hollow for somebody from Thiruvananthapuram or Warangal or Silvassa or Port Blair, because they're all incomplete. Large parts of the Northeast continue to lag, leaving even the Parliamentary Standing Committee unconvinced. Instead of transforming urban life, the mission has largely polished a few elite enclaves, while basic services for millions remain untouched. I can't not mention the new interim trade agreement with the United States, because that has just come out after the minister's speech. It looks less like a free trade agreement than a pre-committed purchase agreement that overturns every principle of reciprocity. How can we speak of a reciprocal tariff of 18% on one side and 0% on the other? At a time when India's total bilateral trade with the US stands at roughly $130 billion, and we have a trade surplus of only $45 billion, we have surprisingly promised to buy $500 billion worth of American goods over 5 years. This effectively converts a surplus into a long-term deficit by executive assurance rather than by market demand. No major economy has ever neutralized its own trade leverage in this manner. While the US continues to impose import tariffs of up to 18%, we have committed ourselves, apparently according to this joint statement that I've been seeing here, joint US-India statement, to impose tariffs up to 18% on Indian exports and we to slash tariffs to near zero levels, open agriculture, dilute data localization, soften intellectual property safeguards, and even redirect strategic energy imports, especially away from Russia, to meet purchase targets. Now, this is not strategic balancing, it is economic preemption. Parliament has neither been told how farmers, MSMEs, and domestic industry will be protected, nor why India has voluntarily surrendered its negotiating power without securing proportional market access. Without securing proportional market access or policy space in return. I know the government will say, wait for the final agreement, it's coming in mid-March, but let them be aware these concerns exist right now, sir. Yes. And the government's claim that India has secured a better deal than China, Vietnam, or other Asian economies does not withstand scrutiny. While India has obtained a tariff reduction of 1 or 2 percentage points from them, no East Asian economy has agreed to deliberately dilute its trade surplus with the US through guaranteed purchase commitments. On the contrary, China, Vietnam, and several ASEAN countries have actually expanded their trade surpluses with the US, even amid heightened trade tensions. And this ambiguity, Mr. Chairman, has a direct bearing on the credibility of the budget itself. When both the Minister of Commerce and Industry and the Minister of External Affairs were questioned on these commitments, they were really offered no clear explanation of their scale, timeline, or fiscal implications. Now, the reason I mention this in the context of the budget is that key budgetary assumptions on trade balances, external financing needs, and overall macroeconomic stability rest on information that the Parliament does not possess and has not been given. A budget framed amid such uncertainty is not just incomplete, it asks this House to approve numbers without knowing the obligations that may soon overtake them from this trade agreement. Now, I do want to say that when the two ministers play ping-pong with each other, saying it's not in their mandate to answer the question, each one attributes it to the other, then that looks like a rather disappointing game, because when no minister claims ownership of something like this, accountability disappears, and Parliament is left staring at a budget that conceals obligations that the government seems to lack the courage to admit openly. In short, Mr. Chairman, the real weakness of this government's budget lies in its implementation, where rhetoric is not matched by reality. Let me quote that famous verse once again by Mirza Ghalib, which I think perfectly captures our reality today as reflected in this budget and its aspirations. हमको मालूम है जन्नत की हकीकत, हमें मालूम है जन्नत की हकीकत, लेकिन दिल बहलाने के लिए गालिब ये ख्याल अच्छा है. That seems to be what we have had inflicted upon us. We know the reality behind these claims, these tall promises, these narratives of model governance, but they're not policies grounded in outcomes, they're carefully curated illusions. Glossy schemes, utopian projections, they might soothe the imagination, dil to behlata hai, but everyday life for the ordinary citizen of India has remained unchanged. Hope is repeatedly sold, but delivery remains perpetually deferred. Viksit Bharat by 2047 is an admirable ambition, safely more than 2 decades away. This budget offers no credible pathway to reach it. Instead of narrowing the gap, it widens it. Unemployment continues to rise. Poverty hardens. Jobs remain scarce. Wages remain stagnant. Small businesses, already gasping for relief, are smothered under layers of compliance, while informal workers, gig workers, who sustain our economy with their labor, are pushed further into invisibility and insecurity. Government promises railways, yet stations crumble. They speak of flight, yet Udan has flown away. Our pepper, once celebrated as black gold, withers under neglect. Our long coastline stretches endlessly, but is ignored when it comes to protecting it. Education is curtailed precisely when it should be expanded, while the rhetoric of world-class technology and AI grows louder. 1.5 lakh schools still function without electricity, yet Viksit Bharat is spoken of as if the lights are already on. When vision is severed from reality, it ceases to be aspiration and becomes merely an illusion. A truly Viksit Bharat will not be built on slogans, Mr. Chairman, not built on speeches or symbolism, but on delivery, that reaches the last citizen of India. Turning promises into outcomes is not a favor, it is not a choice. It is our kartavya, it is your kartavya, may I say to the government. Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and Jai Hind.
माननीय श्रीमती अपराजिता सारंगी जी।
It is my pleasure and privilege to talk about the Union Budget for the financial year 26-27. Thank you, Chairman, sir, for giving me this opportunity. At the outset, I commend Honorable Finance Minister, Madam Nirmala Sitharaman, for giving to this country of 1.4 billion people her 9th consecutive budget, a budget which reflects her commitment, the commitment of the government, the conviction of the government, and the consistency of the government. As I stand here to speak, I'm reminded of a few words from Rigveda, the oldest of our Vedas. Sangachadvam sangvadadvam sangvo manansi janatam. हम साथ बोले, हम साथ चलें, हमारी भावना और हमारी सोच एक दिशा में हो. My dear colleagues, we are all moving towards one and only one goal in the country, and the goal is to make India Viksit Bharat by 2047. And I can say with all conviction at my command that this particular budget of the financial year 26-27 is definitely a very strong step in our common journey. For the sake of clarity, I must say, my dear friends, that our Finance Minister, Madam Nirmala Sitharaman, framed the blueprint around 3 kartavyas. Number 1, to accelerate and sustain economic growth. Number 2, to fulfill the aspirations of the people and build their capacities. And number 3, to align with our core objective of Sabka Saath, Sabka Vikas. बंधुगण, यह ऐतिहासिक बजट सिर्फ संख्याओं का संकलन नहीं है, यह विकसित भारत की यात्रा में हम सब के लिए एक माइलस्टोन है, एक निर्णायक मील का पत्थर है. यह हमारी आर्थिक स्थिरता, सुधार और हम सब के सामूहिक आत्मविश्वास का दस्तावेज है. My dear colleagues, this particular budget of the Union government comes at a time when India is actually moving fast in its growth trajectory, and we must accept and acknowledge this. This is the first budget of the second quarter of 21st century, and that's why it's a very important budget for all of us, for all 1.4 billion Indians. Friends, we are aware of the fact that in 2014, we were the 10th largest economy, and at this juncture, our micro fundamentals are very strong. We are the 4th largest economy, bypassing Japan. We are going to be the 3rd largest economy, bypassing Germany very soon. And our forest reserves are very high. Our exports have gone beyond $800 billion. And I must say here, we have been all listening about inflation rate. The inflation at this juncture, December 25 figure, we are at 1.7%. And here will I say this, while I say this, I must say that between 2011 and 2014, the average inflation of this country was 9.8%. I must say this, and I think all of us sitting in this house must appreciate this. Friends, the unemployment rate, all of us have been talking about the unemployment rate. It's declining every day, and at this juncture, it is 4.8%. We must realize this. हमारा देश वैश्विक निवेशकों, फॉरेन इन्वेस्टर्स के लिए एक भरोसेमंद गंतव्य की तरफ उभर के आया है। और हम सबको समझना होगा कि इस तरह की जो आर्थिक स्थिति है, जब विश्व में हमारी प्रशंसा हो रही है, हम मजबूत जमीन पर खड़े हैं, यह कोई संयोग नहीं है। यह हमारे अनुशासित वित्तीय प्रबंधन, संरचनात्मक सुधारों और स्पष्ट नीति का प्रमाण है। आदरणीय प्रधानमंत्री जी की सोच, की दूरदर्शिता और मार्गदर्शन को मैं नमन करती हूँ। The analysis of the budget of financial year 26-27 makes it abundantly clear that the Indian government has chosen the path of long-term growth. And this is not growth by impulse, this is not short-term stimulus. This is possible because of sustained, continuous investment in infrastructure, in institutions, in industrial capacity and upskilling. We must realize this. And these four things which I talked of are extremely important when a country aspires to become a developed nation. As was told by Honorable Madam Sitharaman in her speech, the expenditure today stands at 53.5 lakh crore. We must remember this. And the fiscal deficit stands at 4.3% of the GDP. My dear friends, we are in a very difficult global settings. I think all of us are aware of this. All my esteemed colleagues who are present in this house, it's an age of global uncertainty. And in this age of fractured global order, the government of India has decided to keep building. Charai veti, we must remember this. There is a massive scale up in public capital expenditure. I remember in 2014 it was just 2 lakh crore. We must appreciate this. Rupees 2 lakh crore in 2014-15 has gone up to 11.2 lakh crore rupees in 2025-26, and now with all pride, with all happiness as a citizen of the country, I can say that the public capital expenditure has gone up to 12.2 lakh crore rupees, which is 4.4% of the GDP, and it registers a 10% increase over the last year. And friends, we are aware of the fact that if the capital expenditure grows, then it definitely has a large multiplier effect on the economy. Urban transformation. Urban transformation is a very significant pillar of the budget. Madam Sitharaman talked about engines of growth. The cities, the big towns are today the engines of growth. And a wonderful concept was brought about and placed before all of us, the city economic region. City economic region focusing on tier 2 and tier 3 cities have been thought about by the government. Rupees 5,000 crore will be given to this city economic region, every city economic region, over a period of 5 years to build infrastructure. And we know what will happen.
Let's reduce pressure on the mega cities and fostering balanced development in the process. All of us know that no country ever can actually become a developed nation without having manufacturing competitiveness, and our government has tried to give a substantial push to the manufacturing competitiveness idea. This will not only create jobs, but also in the long run help promote our exporting community. The allocation of rupees 10,000 crore to the biopharma sector will not only help our people take care of their healthcare needs, but also lead to huge exports. Similarly, there was mention of many important areas which I think we must be talking about wherever we are. India has really advanced forward. There is focus on semiconductor mission 2.0, nuclear sector, rare earth corridors, data centers, and electronics components mission with a whopping 40,000 crore as the allocation. And I'm sure these investments
will lead to less import dependency and make India future ready. I think these are things that we are thinking about our country, and I underscore the fact that we are intending to become Viksit Bharat by 2047, and that is why we have to be future ready. The provision of 4,000 e-buses is definitely going to enhance regional connectivity. My dear friends, 20 new national waterways, expanded road networks, freight corridors, 7 high-speed rail corridors and multimodal logistics system. These are giant leap towards a more competitive, resilient, confident and self-reliant Viksit Bharat by 2047. We may like it, we may not like it, but we need to accept it. My dear friends, I take this opportunity to convey our immense gratefulness to our Honorable Prime Minister for going for almost 9 free trade agreements and trade deal with a couple of countries in the last couple of years. Again, there would be critics, there would be naysayers, but I know to every action of Prime Minister Modi, there is an equal and opposite negative reaction from my right side. Free trade agreements and trade deal have been signed with New Zealand, UK, Oman, Australia, European Union consisting of 27 nations, and very recently with the US. And this is an indication of a particular thing which I think we need to appreciate. This is an indication of the fact that the government of India, under the leadership of our Prime Minister, knows how to navigate in a difficult world order. I talked about difficult global settings. We are aware of that. And in this difficult world order, the government of India for the past couple of years, about 10-12 years, have acquired the ability, the capability, the talent to navigate successfully. In this budget, a number of customs duties and import duties have been withdrawn. And this is for good. This is to help the exporting community. Friends, I would like to give certain examples which I think all of us need to appreciate. We have allowed duty-free import of ingredients by seafood exporters, allowing 3% of freight on board value of exports to be imported duty-free by textile and leather goods, and allowing SEZ units to sell in domestic tariff area at concessional duty, and these are extremely progressive and pragmatic ways of strengthening our exporting community. My dear friends, our Prime Minister and our Finance Minister have been talking all the while about the micro, small and medium enterprises. I would say they are the backbone of Indian economy, extremely important, and they contribute 35.4% of the manufacturing out, about 49% of India's total exports, and around 31% of the national GDP. Now it's 7.47 crore MSMEs in the country, employing around 33 crore people. MSME has emerged as the second largest employer after agriculture. And our government, under the visionary leadership of our Honorable Prime Minister, recognizes this. And that is why rupees 10,000 crore have been allocated as SME Growth Fund. And there is a great concept, and the concept is nurturing the champion MSMEs. I think this is something very interesting, very innovative, and we all need to stand together and appreciate. Friends, a healthy India is a prosperous India. And here I must like to inform all of you, or rather help you recall, that Madam Nirmala Sitharaman allocated rupees 1.06 lakh crore for the Ministry of Health and Family Welfare in this budget, and this is a staggering 194% increase over the 2014-15 levels. In order to make our healthcare affordable and even accessible to many people, you know, the customs duties, the import duties have been withdrawn from 17 cancer drugs and drugs of many diseases which are rare by nature. I think this is something for which our government, Prime Minister Modi's government, needs to be commended and complimented. Now, my dear friends, could anybody think about AVGC, animation, visual effects, gaming and comics? This government is planning to raise about 2 million professionals by 2030 in AVGC sector. Absolutely out of the box idea, you may like it or not, but this is highly innovative and an out of the box idea of our government. Now here, the government will be supporting the Institute of Creative Technologies Mumbai to raise these professionals and to actually establish content creator labs in about 15,000 secondary schools and 500 colleges. It is very easy for me to read out, as my dear friend just did. When you are convinced about what your government is doing, you know, you need not read out from the papers. I know what our government is doing and how my government is ensuring that India moves forward. I don't have to look into papers for data and statistics. We are convinced that the government is moving forward, and this confidence is coming out when we speak about the government's good works. Friends, there is a very interesting thing.
Ma'am, kindly, ma'am, kindly address the chair.
Yeah, thank you. To ensure sustained economic growth, and also at the same time to keep fiscal deficit in check, is an interesting phenomenon. It's a challenge. And I'm extremely happy to inform the House that we recognize, we appreciate that this government has been doing that. Our growth momentum has been sustained, and at the same time, fiscal deficit is low, 4.3%, as I told earlier. This is the challenge which has been taken on by the government. The budget of financial year 26-27 is definitely pragmatic, pro-people and balanced in nature. हमें सशक्त, आत्मनिर्भर और विकसित भारत बनाना है। बंधुगण, आदरणीय प्रधानमंत्री जी की सोच, उनके दिग्दर्शन, उनकी सकारात्मकता के सामने हम सब नतमस्तक हैं। मैं नमन करती हूं और उनके लिए दो पंक्तियां। मैं सोच भी बदलता हूं, मैं नजरिया भी बदलता हूं, मंजिल जाने तक का जरिया भी बदलता हूं। और अगर बदलता नहीं कुछ तो सिर्फ अपना लक्ष्य नहीं बदलता हूं, अपना पक्ष नहीं बदलता हूं। आप सबको बहुत बहुत धन्यवाद। कहना आसान है, करना कठिन, लेकिन हमारी सरकार आदरणीय प्रधानमंत्री जी के बलिष्ठ नेतृत्व में आगे बढ़ती जा रही है। आइए हम सब संग छद्वम संग बगध्वम संग वो मनांसी जानतान, हम साथ चले, हम साथ बोले और हम सब की सोच और भावना एक दिशा में हो। बहुत बहुत धन्यवाद।